Greetings, fellow ukuleleans. Jeff Weinberger coming at you here with a new ukulele tutorial. Today I'd like to talk about a Jewish song called Mi Yimalel. It's traditionally played around Hanukkah, and the translation of that title in English is Who Will Retell. So we have the key of F that I chose because that's a particularly ukulele-friendly key. And the chords, very briefly, I'll go over those first before we get into the nitty-gritty of it. F, that's the main chord. We had a little bit of C7 in there. By the way, F was 2010. C7, easiest way is 0001. One finger chord, good for kids if you're a kid or if you're a beginner. Or you're a kid and you're a beginner. C7, great chord to learn, very accessible. And finally, B flat, a little bit harder, but not that bad. 3-2-1-1, requires a bar of the first finger. So later on in the tune, it gets a little more raucous. It picks up in tempo, and you double the tempo, and it gets into some kind of Middle Eastern scales and different sounds. We'll go over that part too. But let's go over the verse first. So you have your melody going on top of those chords, on top of the F, B flat, and C7 chords, and the melody's real major scale based. It goes like this. And that has the main message of the song, the Who Will Retell part in it. And then later on, as I mentioned earlier, it gets a little faster and it gets into some minor chords and some Arabic sounding scales, Middle Eastern sounding scales. But to start with, yeah, it's just that really basic melody. The scale it comes from is the F major scale. It's first fret of your E string, third fret of your E string, then you can play your open A string, first fret of your A string, third fret of your A string, and even just that would be enough. The first 5 notes of that scale, the pentascale. But if you want to go a little further up, you can grab D at the 5th fret. If you want to go further down, you can grab open E, 2nd fret C, and open C. If you have a low G on your ukulele, which I don't today, but if you did, then you would have some additional notes. You would have B flat on the 3rd fret of your G string, A on the 2nd fret of your G string, and G as your open G string. On a high G ukulele, they sound like that. On a low G ukulele, it would be an octave lower. So yeah, you can play the small pentascale. You can play the extended scale going up. And you can even extend it down. So that's a great thing for you to practice is your F major scale. You can use your thumb to pluck all those notes. You can use your first and second fingers alternating like a classical guitar would. You can use a pick. A lot of different ways. You can use your thumb and your index. It's a lot of different ways to pick notes, but most of you are probably pretty comfortable using your thumb. All right, so that's the melody of the verse. Let's see how that fits in with the chords. I'm doing an F chord. I start with an open C note. That's the pickup note of the melody. And then, what do I do there? That's a partial roll. That's a familiar technique to any of you that have studied chord melody ukulele or James Hill's method of chord melody ukulele. He calls that a partial roll, and I do too. It's where you get the melody note to be the highest sounding pitch of the chord, and you sometimes don't strum the whole chord. You have to stop so that one note in particular stands out as the melody. In this case, I'm playing an F chord. I have F as the melody, and my thumb stops. After I play that F note, my thumb stops on the A string. If I were to play that A note, that sounds like the melody, and it's not. We don't want that note. We want F to be the melody. So to highlight a melody note, you sometimes have to omit certain strings on your chords, and that's why you do the partial roll. I'm going to do that real slow, that partial roll. See that? My thumb stopping and resting on that A string prevents it from ringing. So that now F is the highlight of that chord. There's your first bit of melody. After hitting that F note again after the strum of the chord, the partial roll, then you hit your open C string. And then back to that F note. So that's the mi, Yimalel part. So that gets you started. I'm not going to show you each and every little melody note here. What I am going to do, though, is tab it out for you. I'm going to have a nice tab, which right here I'm reading from music notation, but I'll convert this into tab for those of you that don't read music. And I will put that up on my Patreon. You can link to it down below and get yourself a copy, and you'll be able to see this whole melody rather than me sit here and do the boring thing that happens in so many tutorials where you just go over. I take my first finger and put it on the first fret of my second string, and I hold that for 2 beats, and then I play. That could take forever, and you guys would be falling asleep by the end of that, so I'm going to spare you all of that. But you saw how I played the beginning of that melody and that all-important partial roll. So that should suffice for now. And then the tab will teach you more. You can always email me too. You can get my email address, and I will gladly answer any questions if you weren't sure about any of that.